Good afternoon. I'm Karl Miller. I get to be the assistant principal at Permian High School for letters T through Z.
How long have you been an assistant principal?
Here at Permian High School, I've been here for a year and a half. Prior to that, I spent 4 years in San Antonio as an assistant principal of a middle school. And then before that, I spent 10 years as a high school principal in Washington and Oregon.
Are you a fan of art?
Yes, ma'am. I am what you would call an artist at heart, or a Renaissance man. I write poetry, I paint, I draw, I photograph, I do a lot of music. I have a couple of CDs, a book called Words from the Heart, lots of things.
Were you in art in high school?
Yes, I was. I was in art, in drawing and painting, and I was also in the theater, did drama class. I was in choir, sang with the Northwest Boys Choir, and I also was a quarterback of our football team and captain of our basketball team, and fully involved in all those activities. It was a lot of fun.
Do you have any favorite artists or art styles?
Well, I love the Renaissance and Baroque. When I got out of high school, I ended up going into the military, and I ended up doing some basic training and then training back in Boston, so I got to see some of the old buildings there, and I thought it was really cool that I was in a place where there were some buildings that were over 200 years old. And then I moved to Germany and was stationed in Europe, and I was the city that I went to was a city called Augsburg. And Augsburg was founded by Caesar Augustus. And when I was there, they were celebrating their 2000th year. And so I was in the Roman baths that were designed architect-wise. And then I got to see all the Gothic cathedrals and go into the palaces and see all of that just fabulous, fabulous artwork. And it was great. Yeah, so I got to see it all.
Okay, what other arts are you interested aside from the regular basic art?
Okay, there is photography that I've been doing ever since I got a camera when I was about 10 years old. I paint. Watercolors is something that I've done since I was on Whidbey Island, as well as still lifes. I pencil and pen, and that's always something that stays with you because you'll see a moment and you want to capture that. And in my brain, I'll take a photo. I just take a snapshot. And then when I get home or when I get myself handed to some paper, I can doodle it out and remember the colors and the hues and everything. And that's really a lot of fun because you try to recreate that. And, pictures are one thing, that's neat. But then if you can kind of do it on your own, it kind of makes it special.
What challenges have you faced when painting and drawing?
Sometimes it's perspective. And it wasn't until I saw the lady who was doing farm animals, her artwork from New England, and her perspective was just shot. I mean, it literally was like she didn't have any depth at all, but she didn't care. It was her style. And so, the cow would be as large as the school bus and the barn. But then there would be trees that would be proportional to the flow of the fields, and in New England or Vermont or Pennsylvania, and you would see this and you go, I guess art can be anything you want. So my eye is saying it's got to be this, but in all reality, it's you.
What would you be if you weren't an assistant principal? Like, would you be in the art industry?
Well, the thing that drives my soul is music and painting pictures with words. I started writing when I was in the military, and it was more therapeutic, just to kind of relive and to get out some of the emotions that were happening. But in the back of my brain, I have this committee, and it's an orchestra, and it plays music all the time. Music that I've heard and music that I'm creating for myself. And a lot of times I'll get words that'll go together. And it just comes in a moment. It will just be there, and I've got to write it down because it won't stop playing in my head. It'll just go over and over and over. As she was walking out the door that I was walking in, a smile came to her face that I just had to see again. That glance was just a moment, and that space was paper thin as she was walking out the door that I was walking in. And that's country western, bluegrass. I've got all the instruments, and it happened literally in 10 seconds. And I wrote this entire song with that. And, stuff's on fire. I wrote a song just from that phrase. So it's really cool. So I would probably be in the music industry. I've spent almost 20 years as a professional concert rigger. I've worked for hundreds and hundreds of bands, over 500 different bands I've worked for, from AC/DC to the Rolling Stones to U2 to Madonna, Michael Jackson. I've met them all, I hung out with them all. And, now I'm here in Odessa, Texas. It was probably the summer of 1990. Some pretty emotional things that happened in life. I stopped writing, I stopped painting, I stopped a lot of things, and ended up having a friend of mine fly in from Finland. And Petri and I went on a road of discovery. We kind of went on a road trip out to the ocean and just hung out at the Oregon coast. And while we were out there, I began to listen to nature and see the beauty that's around me and realize that, I'm just a little speck of dust. And when the big picture of things, get over it. Just get over it, and do what you enjoy. Follow your heart.
Do you have any advice for students that want to be in fine arts?
Know that you just got to keep knocking on those doors. You just got to keep plugging along, because you're never going to know who you might inspire and or who might know somebody that knows someone. Where, that 3 dimensions, that 3 degrees of separation between people, it's really true. So if you're trying to get into the arts, or you're trying to get into fine arts, you never really know who might know the person who owns the studio where you get to have your first show. You get to do your first display, or your first piece of artwork gets shown. Or when you take a photo and you share it, and you don't really realize who might be down that line. And then they say, well, who's the photographer? Well, it's you. And so keep going. Don't give up. And I would say that the people who tell you to work on this or work on that, great. But if you know in your heart that's not you, that's not your truth, follow your truth. Follow your truth.